Hello, this is Sharzad Morgan. I just finished listening to Robert Kennedy Jr.'s message, an announcement, he was thanking all the volunteers, all the hard work they'd done, and how much the Democrat Party had tried to stall him at every turn after doing what has not been done in 40 years due to all the states changing their laws to keep anyone that's not a Democrat or Republican off the ballot. They succeeded. They got on the ballot in every state, and the Democrat Party used lawfare to get them off some of the ballots, and it just became extremely difficult. I heard Nicole Shanahan say that they had to spend so many millions of dollars on the lawfare and fighting, pushing back against the Democrats, trying to get them off the ballot. The same Democrats that say that they're for democracy. This is not our grandparents' Democratic Party. This is not our parents' Democratic Party. This party has been co-opted by global elites who are wishing to harm and destroy our country for their own benefit. They're purely evil. But to continue, he said that he said that he was going to suspend his campaign, that he would remain on the ballot in all the blue states and all the red states, but in the kind of swing states, he was going to remove himself from the ballot, and the process had already started, and that he had spoken with Trump already some time ago and was going to join forces with him, and that if Trump keeps his word and is elected, that Kennedy will be able to also do some good for the country. What really drove him to be in this election in the first place and what's driving him to continue are his three main concerns for free speech, ending the forever wars, and children's health. And he went into it in a little bit more detail. It was a very moving speech. I was so inspired. And I actually think that all these people that are speaking the truth now, they're wanting to join the Trump team. So many other people that want to join the Trump team, and it seems like the Trump agenda is more like a populist agenda. I know that many people are upset that Kennedy was not speaking out against Israel, but you have to understand that if you speak out against supporting Israel, you will be either eliminated in your living situation or from the political stage. Like, you have no chance. Okay, so you have to support Israel. Okay, but just swallow that and just think of all the other good things one step at a time. Kennedy spent a great amount of time explaining how the US provoked the Ukraine war, how we need to just end it, how Trump said he would end it on the first day, and certainly they can. So I was just very, very happy about that. I think that would be a great team. Again, if you're a Democrat, just consider this is not your parents' Democratic Party that was for the worker, for the everyday person. This Democratic Party has been co-opted by an evil agenda of twerkers focusing on divisive issues like DEI and gender pronouns. And like Kennedy was saying today, if you want to help the poor people, it's not through DEI, it's through improving the health of these children, because 77% of Americans are obese, 40% of children have diabetes, which was something that a typical pediatrician only ever saw once in their lifetime, and it's disproportionately affecting poor communities because that's the food processors are shoving the food more in those communities with the support of the government. Biden had just appointed a task force to study the food nutrition program. All of the people on the task force come from the food processor industries, and they have a say in the food pyramid, the lunch programs, and so on. So we need to change everything from the agency level. I just really think we could have a lot of really good change. A lot of these people that are really finally speaking the truth. I saw Chris Cuomo on the DNC floor the other day just spouting some truth bombs, and it's pretty exciting when people are actually speaking some truth. One thing I want to say about Trump is the media has been gaslighting me for so long. I grew up listening to the news as a source of information, and I was not aware when they became co-opted by the government. This is another thing Kennedy explained in his speech, how the Democratic Party has co-opted the media, that the media has become an extension of the DNC rather than a check and balance and asking them questions and holding them accountable. And by the way, the media has not given a voice to any other independent candidates. I think Kennedy had like 2 interviews in the mainstream media, but the media started changing from professionals who did research, investigations, and asked questions, and they were gradually taken over as being a megaphone for the political establishment. Therefore, they haven't really done their job in telling us the truth, and I didn't realize this was happening. Even when Trump was running in 2016 and people in the media kept saying he was bad, I felt confused because I didn't think he was bad. I'm like, he seems kind of likable. And for years, I kept thinking, is there something wrong with me? Because so many people that I know were like, Trump is bad. I'm like, is there something wrong with me that I'm not picking up on something? He grabbed a woman by the pussy, but like, I know he says unhinged things, but I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me for not agreeing with the media. And I just realized in the last few days that there's nothing wrong with me. It was the media lying to me. But I didn't realize this before, because then what happened, how I got disenfranchised from the media. I was watching all the mainstream news shows, CNN, the 11th Hour with Brian Williams, Ken Obergreen. I can't remember all the guys. MSNBC, I watched a lot of their stuff. I didn't watch Fox News at all. And they were telling me for years about Russian collusion and how Trump was bad. And then they had, remember the special prosecutor, Mueller? And I was like, yeah, Trump is bad. We got to get him, we got to go and figure this out. And then the Mueller report came out and didn't find anything. I'm like, something's corrupt. I was still believing the media that Trump was bad and that he had colluded with Russia. I'm like, yeah, he probably colluded with Russia because he's trying to, build hotels in Russia. But I was glad when he met with Putin and with Kim Jong-un, because I'm like, yes, we need to have diplomacy with these people. But the media was pointing it out as bad. Trump is bad. Should not be talking to these people. I disagreed with that. But anyway, then, and the media has not really covered this, the whole Russia collusion thing was a hoax. It turns out, and you can look this up, that Hillary Clinton paid people. It was called the Steele dossier. She set this whole thing up as a story to try to get back at Trump or weaken Trump, and it was all fabricated. All fabricated. I didn't even know this until much later, but they never came back and told us, and they knew it was fabricated, but they told us that lie because they were a mouthpiece for the Clintons. The point that I finally got disillusioned with the media, my turning point was during the COVID, when they started trying to scare us and didn't ask any questions or give us any news. That's when I got really fed up with our government and the media, when they locked us down without any explanation, without any questions, without any alternatives. And I was thinking, who cares about the infection rate? Like, we have infection rates for cancer and colds. We don't go around testing our infection rates. Like, we want to know how many people are sick and dying. So they're trying to scare us. And I was like, if this is so scary, they should be going around testing people. They should have panels and committees. They should be discussing treatments and alternatives. But all that was banned, and we were silenced. And if we were asking any questions, we were told that we were a threat to society. And then they started making kids wear masks, and they started doing a tyrannical control of us. and the media was complicit in it, and I'm like, and started banning us for even asking questions, and that came from the White House. Trump started the lockdown. He didn't handle it the best, but the Fauci, the whole thing that went on, that came from the White House. Their White House told Facebook and YouTube to silence and strike anyone who asked any questions. So that's where the tyrannical control started, and our free speech is under attack throughout the world. I mean, the European Union too. But the health epidemic is uniquely American. There is no other country in the world that has the health epidemics that we have, with the obesity rates, the high autism rates, the diabetes. That's a uniquely American problem because of our processed foods. They do not allow all those processed foods in other countries. And by the way, genetically modified foods are banned in Mexico and in Europe. But here it's a free-for-all. So anyway, I became disenfranchised with the media, and now that I see the media is just like a propaganda piece. And, you know, they tell us that Putin is bad because he silences the opposition and controls the media. That's what the Democrats do here. They silence the opposition. Look what they tried to take Trump out. That's another thing I became aware of. I didn't believe the whole January 6th thing until just a couple weeks ago. I started questioning everything. I'm like, why are they trying to take out Trump? And another thing, he recently survived an assassination attempt, and 2 days after it happened, the media stopped talking about it. We should be enraged about someone trying to assassinate a presidential candidate. We should be enraged that the Democratic Party is suing to take someone off the ballot that voters have signed petitions to get on the ballot. These are evil, evil people. They did a coup. They took Biden out. They installed Kamala, a person who has never won a primary, has never had a vote, had a lower approval rating than Biden, and then they airbrushed her and gave her speeches and made sure she's never given any speeches, any interviews, no speeches off a teleprompter, and presented her to you on a silver platter. And the only people that are going to vote for Kamala are people who hate Trump or are lifelong Democrats and frankly are a little brain dead, to be honest. A little brain dead, because look what they stand for. They stand for nothing. Their convention was all a bunch of twerking, abortion vans, vasectomy vans, and their protesters were silenced. Michelle Obama, she tried to silence those protesters by telling people that they, I don't know, something she said about not making any waves. Like, they don't want protesters. And Obama, the guy who wanted change, the only change he wanted was that he wanted his ass in the White House. He wanted his ass in the White House. 2 terms of Obama, who did nothing for the blacks, did nothing for this country, started like 6 or 7 wars. That's what got us Trump. And Trump started 0 wars. He started 0 wars. So, I think I would have to support Trump at this point, and not because I don't like what the Democratic Party once was, but I don't like what they've become. They've become pure evil. They stand for nothing. All of their stuff is all about, like, if you listen to Kennedy's speech, he's talking from the heart about things he stands for in 3 specific policies: free speech, ending all these forever wars, especially the war in Ukraine. That's very dangerous, you guys, because NATO has just invaded Russia. And children's health, which is going to improve our economy a lot if we make children's health better and don't spend so much money on disease. They want to give Ozempic to kids as young as 6. You know, the company that makes Ozempic comes from the Netherlands. The Dutch people don't give their kids Ozempic. They tell them to exercise and eat well. Like, we need a complete reset. And the Democrats Party, the way it is now, cannot offer that. The Democrats need to revamp themselves and become a party of the people again. But right now, they're super, super lost. I hope that they lose, but I'm surprised it's such a close tie. I think a lot of Americans are really not paying attention to the news. They're not aware of the obesity rates and how the major corporations have taken over these agencies. I mean, I've known about this since the 80s. I've been kind of following the economy and politics loosely and the corruption, but it's just reached a whole new level. And I think a lot of people are not aware. I think they're voting Democrat because they always have, or maybe they like the poster of Kamala. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why anyone would vote for Kamala or Walz. Like, I guess I'm curious. Uh, if you leave a comment, and you want to say who you're voting for, I would like to know why. Say why. What do you like? If you're going to vote for Kamala and Walz, like, why? If you're going to vote for Trump and Vance, why? That would be interesting to know. And I don't think we should be hating each other for who we want to vote for. I think we should just get curious and have conversations. That's what we need to do. We need to stop hating each other. But I really do not think, I think if we go the direction of Kamala and Walz, we are going to lose more freedoms, we're going to lose more health, we're going to get more censorship, because we need some people who are going to change from the inside. And it can't just be Trump alone. He's got to get a whole team of people who are also anti-establishment, like a Kennedy. What if Tucker Carlson was like in charge of news or free speech or something? Like, we need some real game changers. Tulsi Gabbard would be great, in charge of the Pentagon. I'm just going to nominate people. Tulsi Gabbard in charge of the Pentagon, or the CIA, or the FBI. Because the Democrats just went after her and put her in the Quiet Skies program, and a bunch of marshals came forward and were whistleblowers and spoke out. Now there's an investigation. I think it's Kamala trying to take her out. Like, these Democrats are coming after you. And if you're Trump or Vance or Tulsi or Kennedy, you need to have your own private security, because I think your lives are at great risk, you guys. I think these Democrats will stop at nothing to stay in power. At the Republican convention, I don't think they had all those protesters, but there should have been. I think the Palestinian people were protesting at the DNC because the Democrats are in power. But rest assured, no matter who is in power, they're going to support Israel, and they're going to keep continuing bombing Gaza. And I think the only way this will resolve is it's going to destroy itself. It's going to collapse under its own hubris, because Israel is nothing without the U.S. They don't have... Israel is just a limp dick. Israel is a limp dick. It needs the U.S. Viagra to have any power. Without the U.S. Viagra, Israel is a limp dick. And it's gaining so much bad reputation throughout the world. Its economy is in tatters. Thousands of businesses have lost. Millions of Israelis have fled. The Houthis are interfering in the U.S. ships. The U.S. ships have nothing against the Houthis. And Israel is making a lot of enemies, and they are self-extinguishing. Some people say in another year Israel will cease to exist under its own hubris. It's just going to collapse under its own bad things, and unfortunately all these children are dying in Palestine. In a real war, this is how men fight war. Soldier against soldier. Weapons hitting other military installations, military infrastructure. Your weapons are supposed to be used to target military infrastructure and military installations and military, like other tanks, other soldiers. That's how you're supposed to fight war. That's how the Russians are fighting war in Ukraine. They're not taking out civilian infrastructure. They're not bombing homes or children. If you watch how the Russians fight, They're doing it very methodically with soldier against soldier, military equipment against military equipment. That's how you fight a war. The problem that Israel has and why it's a genocide is because they're bombing civilians, women, children, hospitals, schools. This is all against the UN Convention, Geneva Convention, UN weapons. Like they're bullies. They're true bullies. Like they're limp dicks. They have no, they're not able to fight who their enemy is, Hamas, which is actually just a resistance organization. So they're just killing civilians. That's not how men fight. That's how cowards fight, or sociopaths. So that's why people are very upset with Israel. If they were just killing Hamas, nobody would be upset at Israel. They'd feel like that's their war. But they're going after civilians and then refugees in tents. Like, what is wrong with you? So I think that the US also, like right now, Germany is getting done supporting Ukraine. We do know that the US and Poland blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, which has really destroyed Germany. Germany, and I'm from Germany, ich bin aus Deutschland, Germany was a main exporter, the powerhouse of Europe. Why? Because of the engineering power and the intelligence, but also they had cheap energy from Russia through the Nord Stream pipeline, and they have a really solid infrastructure. You need and an educated people. So you need cheap energy, infrastructure, and educated people to have a good exporting system. And this has been destroyed with when the U.S. blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, and you can hear Biden said that that's what they were going to do. Okay. There's no Ukrainian diver that can go in one of the most heavily fortified NATO-protected waters and blow up a Nord Stream pipeline. But the cost of energy to Germany has tripled. And Germany is now going through an economic decline. Many businesses have left. Many industries have gone under. And when Germany is weak, all of Europe is weak. And they did all this at the behest of the US. Now, I have a friend who told me NATO is good. It's kept Europe out of wars. NATO was a defensive alliance. It has kept Europe from fighting each other, but the US has used NATO to start like 6 or 7 wars using NATO. And right now, NATO is used to invade Russia. Russia has been invaded by NATO. Some of these troops are American troops and British troops. They're using American bombs. They've bombed Moscow. They've bombed a beach in Crimea recently. And the only reason that Russia is not retaliating is because they're winning on the battlefield in Ukraine, and they don't want to start a wider war because their objective is negotiation and trade. They don't want to do anything that provokes a wider war, and they probably think if Trump wins, this is all going to come to an end. It's already a war of attrition. 600,000 Ukrainian men have died in this, and 100,000 Russian men have died. For what? You know, there's a propaganda that Russia was going to take over all of Europe. That's a propaganda. That was never the intention. So all of this money spent to try to weaken Russia. And another thing, when the US tried to weaken Russia and they froze Russian assets, it was another peg in the downfall of in the trust that the global world had in the dollar. They're like, our dollars aren't safe. If the US gets mad at us, they're going to freeze our assets. So that consolidated the BRICS trying to make an alternative currency. The BRICS countries banding together against the US. Like, making enemies is not helping. We need a new team in the front. We need leaders who are going to do diplomacy. Remember Kissinger, Madeleine Albright? Diplomacy, you know? And we've lost that. We're like, oh, these are bad guys. We're not talking to them. We're just going to bomb them. Well, Russia and Iran have a lot of restraint, because if they were hyperactive like these leaders we have, we would have already been in a major war. They do not want to escalate. So they have like goals in mind, you know, productivity for their country. The only goal these US leaders have is we're going to take you over because we're the big bad US guy. But they're just a big bully. So I think that Russia is doing stuff. I think that they're going to do things in a way that doesn't provoke a wider war by giving support to some of the U.S. quote-unquote enemies, because Russia has close alliances in Venezuela, in Cuba, in Iran, in other places that they can give support to or give weapons to, and they're winning in Ukraine. And now Putin said negotiations with Ukraine are off the table. Off the table. Don't forget, I'm from Germany. When Russia took down the Berlin Wall, I was like, my heart was just bursting with love. When have you ever heard someone relinquish territory? And at the time, the US, I think it was Bush, I don't know who, Reagan, promised Gorbachev, when he said take down that wall, he promised him, we will never expand NATO east of Germany. We will never. And then they did. They lied. The US lies all the time. They're like an abusive boyfriend that you can't get rid of, like a stalker. They went all the way into Ukraine. They started arming Ukraine, putting NATO military equipment in Ukraine, on the border of Russia, surrounding Russia with NATO equipment. And then when Russia invaded, they're like, everyone's like, Russia's a bad guy that wants to take over Europe. The media is feeding you propaganda. And Google shows you what you Google, you know. I think that our only chance for peace are people like Iran, Russia, North Korea, China, that actually want to have nations, that don't want to meddle in other nations and just want to do trade. And because of that focus, they don't want to get in a bunch of wars. They don't want to escalate. You know, we're the ones escalating. We keep escalating. So we need some people in power that are level-headed, like Putin, like the Iranian regime, the US regime. I'm going to call them all regimes. The US regime needs to stop being this hyperactive bully and see, like, what is our motive here? What is our agenda? And not, I mean, I know their agenda is to make Halliburton rich and McDonnell Douglas rich and make themselves rich by killing people. Like, that's what sociopaths do. But we need some people who have a little bit more empathy. Obama has no empathy. He doesn't care about anyone. But I think that Kennedy has empathy. I think Trump has empathy. Without empathy, you're not going to be a good leader, because you're just going to look at how you can use the population and these agencies to give you more power and do what you want. And I think that we're going to, I don't feel safer because of these wars. I mean, I worry about these wars. I worry about our economic finances. I don't think they make us safer. And I'm very disappointed in the American people for believing what's on the news. I'm very disappointed in our supposed leaders for just being psychopaths. And, you know, Obama and Michelle, just because you stand up there in a makeover and pretty clothes, I can see through you. You're evil. You don't care about this country. You're just trying to keep the Democratic Party in power. You know, you sold out. If you were ever in, I don't know, but you sold out a long time ago. I'm here for the people speaking truth from the heart and who are exposing corruption and who are actually talking about the real issues. And the real issues are not just employment. It has to do with the things Kennedy talked about. Free speech, health, ending the wars. And I would add immigration, and I would add education to the list. Our education is deplorable. Infrastructure, but I think those are some basic things. But I'm also very passionate about a balanced budget, about better education. But free speech is a good place to start, so we can have some dialogues about the problems we actually face, instead of this bullshit about inclusion and twerking and pronouns. You know, Russia and China are banning all that stuff because they don't want to get sidetracked by the agenda. You know, they may not be against it, but they're kind of saying, don't bring this stuff here because it's just like a side issue. We need to focus on real things, like graduating scientists, like building railroads and ports and building things. That's where the focus needs to be. Don't bring us your pronoun bullshit. those people that think that they're women or women, that's like 0.3% of the population. All the rest of them have mental health issues. They need help like the heroin addicts, you know, but one more thing I want to say is please make sure your comments on here are friendly, and I don't allow any name calling, because for us to be as a country, we have to embrace each other and get along and be able to have discussions like this. And people who can't handle a discussion need to go back into get some kind of therapy, I think. We have to be able to handle diverse opinions and have discussions as adults in a respectful way. But people are going to have a temper tantrum or vomit all over the place or have like a panic attack. They need help. I don't want them on this channel. You know, I think that we all have to be adults and share our views and have discussions. Well, why do you like Kamala? Why do you like Trump? You know, that's the kind of discussion we need to have as adults. And we need to be united, because we're all Americans, and how this country goes affects all of us. We need to be united. And if we're divided, it should be the little people against the people at the top who are trying to control us. Not, you know, us little people who are Democrats against us little people who are Republicans. That's not going to help. You know, because we're all affected equally by the decisions that they're making. So I'll be back for the comments, and thank you for watching my video.